Welcome to the Practice Leader Podcast, brought to you by Ascent, a show for medical practice administrators who feel stuck in the daily chaos and want to lead with intention. I'm Zed Williamson, founder and CEO of Physician Growth Accelerator.
And I'm Paul Richards, president of Ascent and director of otolaryngology at the University of Utah School of Medicine. Every week, we explore what high-performing leaders are doing in real time, so you can stop reacting and start leading with purpose, strategy, and results.
So you believe it might be time to bring on a new provider into your practice. And you probably should just pick anybody with a heartbeat, right? Doesn't really matter on who it is. Of course, I'm being a little bit facetious. It's actually important that it's very clear who this person needs to be and that you have a process in place to make sure that when you find that right person, that they also believe it's right for them. And that's why we're speaking with our guest today, Brent Barnacle. He's the VP of Physician Recruitment at IPL Health. He's helped health systems and private practices build high-performance teams that drive growth, improve patient access, and strengthen organizational stability. Brent, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Zed. Thank you.
So I know it can be stressful. A practice is overwhelmed with patients, and there's this desire or need. We need to bring in another medical provider, an MD, an APP, whatever it is. And we can trick ourselves as leaders in private practices that we actually just think that live human with a heartbeat is all we need. But I think you're here to tell us that maybe that's not the case.
Yeah. I would say I've been doing this for the past decade nationally, and I would say one of the biggest things is if you're looking for a warm body, that's exactly what you're going to get. It's not going to be a long-term player. Quite more important, even on the private practice side, that you're finding somebody that is a great overall fit for the organization, the culture, and that they're going to be a good fit into the community as well. Because at the end of the day, long-term recruitment costs add up. Cost of vacancy gets extremely high. So you really want to take the time to find that provider that's going to be a great overall fit.
Yeah. I know, Paul, you've likely witnessed with practices that are connected to Ascent specifically, there's that balance of we have this vacancy that's hurting us, but it is a big struggle to get somebody.
Yeah, I mean, speaking kind of for our members or what I've seen and heard is we've got rural ENT is one of the most is still a unique, I think, type of practice where there are a lot of private practice ENTs still, right? It's kind of comparable like dental, like dentists. Like there's just a lot of ENT groups out there. They're still trying to make it, and they're in rural or not big cities. And even on my end, like academics, there's some academic groups that, you're in such and such city that's a little bit of a hard draw unless you're have local ties, right? And so we know a lot of members that have contracted with physician recruitment agencies to try to bring people in. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle out there, especially as either big groups become flashier or they look more secure, or the draw of where people want to live and type of lifestyle they want, So I'm curious just kind of what you're seeing out there, what people are looking for,
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things when you start talking about more rural locations, that's been my bread and butter. For the past decade, about 90% of my book of business has been in rural America. So, not all these areas are glamorous. Some are 2 hours from the nearest airport. But one of the biggest things when a practice or a hospital or a system is out recruiting is you truly have to have access to the passive and non-seeking candidate pool. So about 70% of physicians are actively seeking, 30% are actively seeking, 70% are behind the scenes. So when we're out looking for physicians for our clients, we're looking for the physicians, if it's a rural location, we're looking for the physicians that are already practicing in rural America. We're not looking for somebody to come out to rural Minnesota, rural Indiana, what have you, that's been practicing in California for the past 15, 20 years that wants to give rural America a shot. That's going to turn into that warm body again. That's going to be a short-term player. And when you can focus your time on and energy on the candidates that aren't seeking, they're usually content in their current roles. There's a reason they're not actively seeking other employment. They're not somebody else's problems. There's usually not that many red flags with them. And if you can get in front of them and present them an opportunity that interests them, at the end of the day, if they come on board, the retention piece is already there. They're making a life move.
This touches on something that I'm really passionate about, because people throw around the idea of burnout a lot. And sometimes I ruffle some feathers with this perspective or my philosophy on that. But I don't think there's a single human on the planet that gets burned out because they're busy. We get burned out because we feel the work we're doing doesn't matter anymore. And you hear about burnout in healthcare a lot. And I think one of the challenges that exists is that it's multifactorial. You have a practice who does not have a clear design around who they are as a culture. They go to a physician recruiter, and the physician recruiter's approach is, let's tell everyone in the world that there's a job available. And then the only people who are interested are the ones who don't care about culture, and they're just looking to get out of what they're currently in. And now we've taken someone who's okay bouncing around and putting him in a practice that doesn't have clear and concise guidelines and standards as to who we are as an organization and how we operate. And then we expect that to go well, which, if you wanted to design failure, that's what you would do. You would say, hey, let's put all these pieces together and we can absolutely create failure in this. Am I off base, Brent, thinking about it that way?
I think you're spot on. I think there's a little bit of work overload that goes into play when, the call burden gets so high. You're pulled away from your family.
Sure.
And really don't have the ability to recharge your batteries. But I think you're spot on the cultural piece. And when you recruit to retain, you don't recruit to retain once you hire that individual. It all starts day one when you're recruiting, just making sure all the decision makers within the practice have the same vision, mission of the organization. Their pitch is the same to the candidates that they're speaking with. It's really a united front. So I think where a lot of practices struggle with retention is they're not making sure up front that they are the right fit for the culture. Maybe they're not talking enough about the culture and where they want to take the organization, future growth plans. Are we just looking for a physician to come in because we have a retirement, or, are we planning on expanding in the next 5 years? What do all of those pieces look like? And then with that in mind, finding the right physician that's going to be able to fill that and help take you to the next level. There's a lot of physicians that are entrepreneurial mindset that are great in private practice. And then you have individuals that are looking to move out of the hospital sector and move into private practice. And sometimes they're a great fit and sometimes they're not. It just depends on who and what you're looking for out of that physician long term.
I love this topic. It's so relevant. All those in our community that have hired the wrong physician know what I'm talking about, but what are some strategies to honing in that they're going to be the right fit? Any specific?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I just say if it's your team doing it on your own, or you're working with an outside firm, it's making sure that you're asking all of the difficult questions up front, that you're sharing all of the good and even the stuff that's not so great. The last thing you want to do is get a physician on site and it's not what you've presented to them. That's what leads to people being there for 6 months to a year, is that this is not what I signed up for. Too many folks focus, I think, on just the roses and not the thorns. And, truly having a great picture of what the overall opportunity looks like, and getting the buy-in from that physician and their family coming in is a key selling point to keep them there long term. Um, One of the biggest pieces for us when I work with private practices, hospitals, health systems, is making sure that we're all in very strong alignment in exactly who we're looking for. So when we present a candidate to you, that first candidate might not be perfect. They might check 5 of the 10 boxes. Providing feedback, speaking with your team, going through that candidate, what fit and what didn't, and then providing that feedback to your recruiter or your internal team is going to allow the next candidate to be that much better. So, yeah, what I always tell my clients is make sure you're having those conversations along the way. Don't just say, no, we're not interested in, and not have a conversation around it, because each time you start building up to that candidate that's going to check 7, 8, 9, 10 of the boxes, and that's who's going to be there long term again.
It makes a lot of sense. The word that also comes to me is definitions. I've seen this go wrong completely, where we use these generic words to see if we agree with someone. And the one that jumps out at me, because I've seen it happen specifically with ENTs, is the word busy. So imagine you're talking to a potential physician to join your practice, and you go, well, so are you okay being busy? Oh, yeah, I'm absolutely okay being busy. Have we defined busy? Because we have ENT clients where they call themselves busy, but one sees 25 to 30 patients a day per physician, and one sees 80 to 100 patients a day per physician. They both call it busy. So if we don't define these things as what must be witnessed, it's another easy way for someone to feel like a good fit. They step into this, what they perceived, and then reality doesn't match perception, and now they're looking for another role.
Yeah, I love that, actually. I haven't heard that in that context. I love it, because even from a patient per day standpoint, when you talk about busy, what's the administrative burden? Do you have individuals AI implemented where it's going to, bring down the administrative burden? So now you're actually to practice more medicine. And what I find in private practice, those physicians are there to do what they went to school to do. They're not interested in the administrative piece. Obviously, there's going to be a certain level of that in every practice, but how can you minimize that to increase the physician's production, which is exactly where they want to be. It's, serving their patients. So yeah, that's great.
I think there's also, I'm curious to get your take on this, Paul. Let's say someone's listening to this right now and they are nowhere near recruiting someone. It is not anywhere, it's not even close to being on their mind. The reason I think there's value for them to think about this is because it's possible that someone on Brent's team is reaching out to one of your current physicians about another opportunity. So how protected do you think the members of Ascent feel in regards to how strong the stickiness is of their current team? So it's not only about recruiting others to come in, but what if someone on Brent's team calls your doctor? Are you a little nervous?
Right. I guess what are the threats out there? Like private equity clearly coming around, and especially for those younger physicians that are newer. Private equity sounds great to the older physicians, and so there's like that threat. What's going on with their practice, and then these merging health systems. I know I participate in the OPPS, which is the Academy section for otolaryngology private practice section, and they're out there talking about how great private practice is and it's the best way to be. But there's some serious concern that a lot of the people are coming into the field. They want to go into academia. They want to have blocked research time, and so I know there are threats. And I'm going to call out one of my colleagues. If I'm in Lubbock, Texas, and people are reaching out and they got opportunities and other more, even though Texas Tech's a good football and basketball program right now, but you know what I mean? Like What's holding you to Lubbock? What's holding you to these rural towns out there? And I think the threat's real. So I think it makes you really question, like, do you have your ducks in a row? Are you creating the best position? Are you getting the temperature of your doctors, right? How are they doing? Are you checking in with them? That would probably be the main thing. I don't know. I'm curious to other thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I actually just wrote down leadership right before you said that. I had a great client who has become a friend over the years. He ran a orthopedic practice in Wausau, Wisconsin, huge multi-specialty orthopedic group. And we become friends over the years. And I asked him, I go, how are you able to retain your physicians at such a high level? And he goes, I round every single week. I speak with my physicians. I ask them, what do you need for me to be at your best at your job? Is there anything that you're missing? Just being visual. And, there's a lot of separation. I've seen a lot of separation over the years between C-suite and the physicians, where it almost feels like two completely different entities within an organization instead of working seamlessly together. So I think what you just said, asking those questions, being in front of your team, and just building that culture to a place where, man, it's going to take an extremely special opportunity to get in front of one of your physicians for them to consider leaving at all. So I loved hearing that.
I have another question, kind of circling back to some of the topics we were talking about earlier. But when you do find someone, a group finds somebody that they think they want to go with, sometimes there's some very vocal doctors or group that are like, I want to hire them. They'll fit perfectly, but maybe others don't see it that way. I'm curious if there's any like best practices on how to finalize that decision. Does that make sense? Like sometimes you can get in groupthink, or you can get a little bit over. One person can dominate it to decide, and then you end up hiring the wrong person because you just didn't do the process the right way.
Yeah, it really has to be a collective effort. It almost has to be an all hands on board. Yeah, we're all voting yes to this individual. What I've seen happen over the years is you can have one person within an organization ruin a completely near perfect recruitment experience. I've had a few clients where one of the individuals that was involved in the interview process was disgruntled and they had no idea. So we had a cardiothoracic surgeon search go on for over a year with more candidates presented than they would have ever gotten on their own. And we're sitting there going, what is happening? These people are interested. We're sharing your message. They seem like they're going to be a great cultural fit. They figured out internally that physician was disgruntled and, ultimately terminated that physician. So, yeah, I think just having clear, concise, especially in private practice, I mean, it's home. These physicians feel like they're part of a team, part of a unit. They don't have a whole lot of red tape to go through like they do in a system or a hospital. So it shouldn't be too difficult to get on the same page with who you're looking to bring in. That's going to be a great addition to the team overall. So just getting very clear on who you're looking for as a person. The scope of work is fine. Obviously, it's going to be almost the same for everybody, but just that cultural aspect is massive. And that goes beyond healthcare. That's in any industry.
When I think about the interview process, I'm not saying you do this exactly, but if you think this way, it can be helpful. Imagine that none of you are able to interview this person, and you have to give predetermined questions to a complete stranger. And those predetermined questions need to uncover if that person's a fit or not. That's the interview style that we want to see, because it helps avoid the bias of, what you're talking about, Paul, of, man, I really like that guy. He plays golf. I play golf. We should hire him, and then it's like, lo and behold, oh, he was a horrible hire. How did that happen? Right. As opposed to that complete stranger, we refer to it as stranger off the street interview, because it can be done. It's all this is an equation of questions with responses, but we generally overall treat hiring the wrong way with how we interview people. It's all this gut feel. We ask questions that are easy for someone to answer in a non-specific way, and we want to be comfortable and they want to be comfortable, and it's just that can create a trap.
Yeah, Zed, and I think I might just add too, if a practice is using IPL or another outside entity, whatever it might be, that recruiter better come out and do a lengthy site visit with you and your team. So imagine, purchasing a used car. Are you really going to purchase that thing without sitting in it, driving in it, figuring out what the little quirks are? That's exactly why you have to have a recruiter that's working on your behalf. Visit the community, spend a full day with the key decision makers, walk the halls, meet the physician assistants and the support team as well that are working there. So when that recruiter is having that virtual call with candidates, they've been there. They've walked the halls. Dr. Smith is a little quirky for the first 30 minutes, but he opens up and he's genuinely a great guy. So when they go into these conversations and these interviews, they know what to expect. They're not walking in cold and going, man, Dr. Smith and I just aren't clicking in the first 10 minutes.
Yep.
And then they turn the switch off. So, yeah, really having an external firm has to be an extension of your organization and be able to present it in a way where they're selling the opportunity as a whole.
Yeah, remove surprises, basically. No
Absolutely.
surprises allowed.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. Well, Brent, I really appreciate you joining us today. It's an important topic. It's one that people, they get into their mind that either it's very important right now or I'm not thinking about it. And then we tend to think about it too late. And so then we accelerate the process and we create more issues. So I like the idea of just putting some focus on it, thinking about it in advance and having a process. If someone wants to reach out to you, is it okay if we put your LinkedIn connection in the show notes?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always open, just to even have conversations, share data if it's specialty specific, what we're seeing in the market, even if we're not working with someone. It's all about being a resource.
Great. And that's Brent Barnacle with IPL Health. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time on the Practice Leader Podcast.
All right. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Practice Leader Podcast. If you're feeling the weight of challenges in your practice, know this. The problems you're struggling with today don't have to remain problems. There is a path forward, and you're not walking it alone.
Each week, we'll be here with insights, ideas, and real-world conversations to help you move forward from chaos to clarity.
See you next week.